Hey everybody, it's time for another weekly roundup. We're going to talk news. We're going to read some comments that were sent in by some of you guys from the last video. And we're also going to take a look at a publication called the Enlisted Times. We'll try to wrap all this up in about 15-20 minutes. We'll see how we do. So let's go ahead and get started with our news. This is one of the more interesting things that kind of came out, and I have a recent podcast with Davis Winky coming out fairly soon, and he and I talk about the ACFT, the APFT, which are the physical fitness tests you have to take in the Army, as well as we discuss the National Guard and kind of how things are changing with the National Guard, not just like in a, we're growing and there's hair in funny places. I mean, like in a governors are like, no, the federal government can't take our state militias away from us. And like there'd be an argument for that if they weren't, getting the fire hose of federal money blasted at them at the same time. So, some interesting conversations happening there. But this one is near and dear to my heart because as soon as I got out of the Army, and I guess statute of limitations be damned, about 8 months before I officially got out of the Army, I started smoking weed on a regular basis. Immediately dropped 10 pounds and felt a lot better, a lot stronger, a lot more mentally resound than when I was an alcoholic. So Matt Gaetz is suggesting the elimination of the marijuana testing of service members. Now, the asterisk here is not completely. This isn't a complete, you're never going to test the soldiers again. This is during initial entry. So when you join the Army, you go through MEPS, medical entry readiness. You have to do a bunch of duck walking, and an old man tells you to turn your head and cough. The basic medical kind of stuff. And one of those was always a urinalysis that you would have to do. So Gaetz is giving us the concept of getting rid of that because, as it turns out, with most states pretty much having it legal in one way or another, whether it be federally or just for recreation, a lot of soldiers or a lot of future soldiers are getting hemmed up on getting busted for weed. Now, the Army does say, hey, look, we will, give you a second chance. And needs of the Army, they probably will. Back when I joined, they might not have given you a second look, but it was 2000. It was a different time. But now, people just smoke weed because it's normal. And the problem is when you're trying to join the Army, you fail your piss test and they say we'll come back in a month. That's a month of cooling off period for you to, pull your head out of your ass and realize, hey, I don't actually want to join the military. I'm going to go do literally anything else. So Gaetz is suggesting something to get rid of that. And to be fair, the correct answer is stop drug testing for marijuana, just in general. Stop doing drug testing. Let adults be adults. Let them do blow if they want. Who cares? Marijuana especially. Who gives a shit? It's no worse than everybody being an alcoholic in the military, which we already mostly were. What this also does is allows that when you go to basic training, now you have like 2 months, 2.5 months. By the time you do get into your advanced individual training, you get to your units down the line, you should, being a good soldier who doesn't do drugs anymore, have that out of your system. And to be fair, weed gets out of your system fairly quickly, depending on body, height, how much you intake, blah, blah, blah. But like a month for the most part, and really less than that for your just kind of a non-everyday user, I'm sure. So it's an interesting idea. I think that, with the recruiting problems that the military is having, they really got to go for anything. I honestly do believe, though, if they just dropped the marijuana, any of that stuff, they would get a lot more soldiers in. There would have to be like, oh, what if troops show up, stoned for work? Fucking, I've seen them just show up drunk for work. At least if they're stoned, they're going to be, compliant a little bit more, maybe a little hungry. They'll fuck off and have a 2-hour lunch, whatever. Like I would rather have a stoned sergeant than a drunk one. So, ups on Matt Gaetz on this one. All right, let's see what we got next. Yes. Authorities on the hunt for a Humvee stolen from the National Guard Armory in Northern California. This is a great one because it has the feelings. If you remember 2018, about 5 years ago, when a young intrepid Lieutenant Yabbitt stole a armored troop personnel carrier and drove it for 113 miles while texting that he's just looking for his anime girlfriend. Um, Later on found trying to smuggle himself into Iraq to, I assume, finish what he began. But we have another guy who is trying to steal a Humvee. Now, the way that civilians kind of think about Humvees and look at Humvees, especially the ones that you would see in a wartime scenario, you would see these ones that are big hulking beasts. They're armored all over. They got a gun in the top of them. It doesn't show like what most of the Humvees, especially for us part-timers, always has been, which is one of these things here. So this is the Humvee that I learned. Not this specific Humvee, obviously, but this is the Humvee very much similar to the one that I learned how to drive on. I drove many times. I've driven LMTVs, mostly against my will. It has been a lot of people saying, well, you can, so you should. And I always say it never pays to be the competent NCO, because then people keep asking you to do stuff. So this is the Humvee that got stolen. It is like your regular car is a lot more, it's a lot better, honestly. It gets better gas mileage. It can go farther. It has a radio. It has heating and air conditioning in it. There's no guarantee this Humvee has any of that shit in it. But also this Humvee probably costs like 5 times as much as your, Toyota Corolla or whatever you have. So, government spending at its best. So this is this is what somebody ended up stealing. I believe they have recovered it at this point. I'm not 100% sure because it's just kind of a ridiculous story to steal just like this is what we drove around in Afghanistan in 2004. And like we have these because they're perfectly fine and for training on Humvees in your training area, if you need to go out and do training elsewhere, these Humvees are great because they're about the same size. They're not as heavy, so they don't roll over as easy. And also if you just need to if you're going out to the range, you can't throw guns in the back of a passenger van, no matter how many times my unit did it. You're supposed to have something like this. So you would grab your Humvees. You have to have tactical vehicles to put your tactical weapons in, blah, 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 blah. So that's what ends up getting stolen. Now, if you are trying to remember, this is what Lieutenant Yabbitt stole, the 1311, I believe, or one of its... I'm not a tank guy, and I know it's not a tank either, but fuck it. This is what he stole. It has no defensive or no offensive capabilities, no defensive really either. It is just a turtle. And my man stole that and just went hog wild driving that all over the place. All right. And finally, I want to add something a little local to home. One of the newspapers that is inside of St. Louis, one of the suburban ones, has a letters to the editor, and of course, it's always crazy people who are writing in. But it also has this, which is the Webster Kirkwood, the police blotter. So this one says, on June 28th, officers responded to the business on the 7400 block of Watson Road, where a suspect used a permanent marker to write "out of order" on a bathroom stall. ORDE. The 37-year-old female was arrested for property damage. Her official statement was that she was, quote, trying to help, end quote. She could not explain why she didn't finish spelling the word order. We've all been there, and you know what? Not everybody needs an editor, so fuck off, officer. God bless you. I'm sure that you were helping. Lord knows that when a soldier goes into a bathroom with a permanent marker, more than likely what's going to come out is a dick. So at least this lady is doing something that could potentially be useful. I don't know how useful. I don't know how great of an idea it was. She's been arrested and probably has to wipe it off. But hey, if we didn't have our local weirdos, what else would we have? All right, let's start taking a look at some of the comments that you guys send in. Now, we're going to talk about basically going to be reading the comments that were on the last the technical of the week. And let's go ahead and bring that bad boy back up here. I discussed this one, kind of broke it down a little bit. Go back and watch that video. But what we have is a lot of comments on this, and a lot of people kind of broke down a little bit more about what we might be seeing here. Somebody says the poster that says podcast is just pure art. I got this at a I got that thing at a an antique mall. Somebody like designed this and has like this one I bought, and they have like magnets and stuff too. I love it because it shows pictures of things you literally cannot listen to podcasts on. So that's my little contribution to as well as my my Camel cigarette. I'm in the infantry, and my Osama bin Laden wanted poster. Let's bring that technical back up. Somebody says at 344, technically, actually a PKM variant. They're talking about the gun back here on the back end here. The small arms machine guns, I'm not as up to date on them as I would say that I like to be, but I mean I've had plenty of time to research them and I don't, so I guess I'm as up on them as I want to be. But I do recognize Soviet game, one way or the other. Let's see. We've got motorcycle flatbed combos are relatively common in some parts of the world. I've seen them a lot in Nigeria and Somalia and time to time in the Balkans. Usually just to transport cargo or small livestock, which makes absolute perfect sense. I would love to have. I think like there's so many like vehicles that I believe America would benefit from. Like all around my neighborhood now, we've got the ATVs driving around, and we've got a lot of electric scooters, and the 49cc scooters, the ones that you can have. As soon as you hit 50 cubic centimeters of an engine, you have to get a license. So people get the 49 ones, as much power as they can get out of a small package. But something like this would be great. Like like if you need to move, like this would be the perfect thing for like I need to go pick up dirt. I need to, I'm going to go down to Lowe's and I need to just throw some stuff in the back of the flatbed. But because you can see this is small, this is compact, and can be repurposed into a technical very easy. Now this guy went above and beyond the call here. Absolutely never seen anything like this before. Probably will never see anything like it again. But it can be turned into a weapon of war. We've got, pretty sure the ladder is an optical illusion perspective. It's leaning against the wall behind the machine. The boxy thing, as somebody mentioned, looks like it's acting as a screen, and there's an optical system that looks out the square box underneath the gun. I do agree with that. There probably is, like, this guy probably has some sort of like Overwatch kind of rigged up, and it's great. He can operate the whole thing from just one spot. Like this is like how Americans fight war. Like you've got as taking your skin out of it as much as you can, but also being very comfortable. Like if he Uber eated some fucking McDonald's there, he'd be perfect. We'd hire him to fly drones, like 100%. He's already got everything that he has there. So yeah, somebody else says using a homemade periscope as optics to fire the weapons, so he's concealed. Fantastic. I love it. Thank you all for commenting. Through commenting on these makes me want to do more of them. I want to be able to kind of talk more with some of the fans and have more interaction like this. So you can always comment on YouTube. You can also send us comments if you are on Patreon. Send us comments. Sergeant Joker, hellofawaitodie.com as well. Send your stuff in. We'll read them. I want to read your comments. I want you to know that people are reading them, and they can be responded to by somebody. So send them in. I'm going to be doing these once a week. I'm going to try to do at least one thing a week more often. And I definitely want to have reader mail or listener mail or whatever it is, however you consume the content that we put out. I would love to have your guys' input. Anything that you have to say, anything that you have to add about whatever we're talking about. And yeah, we can really build something up. Okay, so we've come to the part where I read to you. In the past, what I've done is I've gone through a lot of the old GI Press, Vietnam era anti war zines that were basically published. Some of them were small zines that were published just on one or two bases. Some of them were really big and had subscription bases and had people that that it mailed out to, and they had paid advertising inside. So one thing that I really like about a lot of these is sometimes it looks like just something that somebody's typed out and stapled together and made some copies and put them out around people. And then there's ones that are that have a lot of time and thought and effort kind of put into them. So the one we're gonna read from today is the Enlisted Times. This is one that is like supposed to be very specific for the enlisted class, who I myself happen to be one of them. So this one is a. They talk a lot about nuclear. The way that all the nuclear testing that we've done really fucks things up. As well as like these, a lot of these newspapers, it really depends on who started it, kind of what drum they want to bang. Some of the smaller ones that didn't stick around for very long were very, military industrial complex, being against being drafted and things like that, which was great. But like after, like they were very heavy on the draftees kind of thing. So Enlisted Times, this stuff comes from 1979. So this is well after World War, or excuse me, well after Vietnam was over, but it was still going at the time. So, and it was kind of kind of what I want to do. I want to be that. Well, what I was doing at one point, I guess, in the beginning of the podcast, is being more of a subversive, anti-military. We didn't have a zine for it, but what we had was a podcast. So, and a little yes, a little no, perhaps. But Enlisted Times is one of the bigger ones. I've really enjoyed going through all of the back stuff that I can find. Can't find very much. It comes down to what somebody took the time to scan and upload. So I've only been able to find about 15 or so of the papers. So maybe we'll be able to find more, maybe not. But the thing is, there's so many. There's one Berkeley Barb that I found it's funny. I was looking into it. It was very like, ooh, look at us. We're so super left leaning and everything. But Berkeley Barb ended up having problems where they were very popular. They had about 100,000 subscribers. So they were making 150,000 a year in advertising. So all of the people who worked there were just like, what the fuck? We don't make any kind of money. Like, they were making money based on the subscriptions. Now all this ad revenue is coming in. The guy who ran it was like, no, screw you guys. I can do my own thing. They went off and started their own. Like, it was a whole thing. So it's some of these newspapers that I find have very interesting histories to them, and like that one kind of turned out a little wonky, but I do like there was a lot of women's perspective in that one. There was a lot of there's a lot of what we'll talk about here. Enlisted Times had a section called the Barracks Lawyer, where you could ask questions and like I am the only surviving member of my family. Do I have to get drafted? What does it mean, to be the last surviving versus the last person carry on the name, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of really great stuff in all of these. So we're going to do Enlisted Times. We're going to take a look at two things here. So this is the Enlisted Times. This is kind of so that you can be introduced to the Enlisted Times. So it says, Dear Citizen Soldier, finally there's a paper for you that'll make your CO more nervous than a pot full of military coffee. It's Enlisted Times, a 24-page news monthly for you enlisted men and women who are tired of, bullet point A, Mickey Mouse military regulations, 2, broken promises and broken contracts, and 3, disappearing benefits, and want to do something about it. Careerists and command officers have their papers, Army Times, Navy Times, and the Air Force Times. Check out the many times I've had people. I've just had Davis Winky from the Army Times on. So they have all of theirs. If you have been stationed outside of CONUS, which is continental United States, so deployed anywhere outside of the U.S., you've seen the Pentagon's canned news, Stars and Stripes, and the Armed Forces radio and television service. Like sea rations, both are pretty hard to swallow. What makes Enlisted Times different is that it views events from the military like you do, from the bottom up. You've probably been handed a lot of lines, half-truths, and misinformations from day to day, or from the day you signed up, to today's plan of the day. We can give you the straight story, as well as a variety of critical opinions, because we don't owe anybody, not advertisers, not base commanders, and certainly not Pentagon professionals. And then it kind of says, you'll find things in Enlisted Times you'll never see in Stars and Stripes. Comics by Ted Richards from Dope and Dan, Gary Trudeau from Doonesbury, and Ron Cobb, our barracks lawyer. Colin will answer your legal questions. So they had a really, like, this is a very in-depth kind of newspaper that they had going. I really enjoy going through this one. Some of them, like a lot of times I try to read a whole story. They are very long. There's a lot of long form stuff. I am not too well up on reading out loud. So that's something that I might start kind of practicing and tacking on, I don't know, maybe the back of other Patreon or podcast episodes as little bonuses. But I might start, kind of doing that. But I do. Let's take a look at what I do have from them. So this is the news briefs. In the news briefs, here's just some quick things. Like I said, a lot of news all over this whole thing, this whole newspaper that they have. Meltdown plan, guardsmen and bricks. Had the nuclear power plant at 3 Mile Island gone into a meltdown, the plan called for 2,000 Pennsylvania National Guardsmen to build a giant igloo made of lead bricks around the reactor to reduce the amount of radiation released into the atmosphere. The bricks had already been flown in, and the troops were to have done the job wearing only standard Army issue gear, hood, and mask. There's no citation here. And if you know any, like, I don't know 3 Mile Island. I've done a lot of, I know a lot of things about Chernobyl, and not just I watched Chernobyl on HBO. Like, I've read books and stuff and whatnot. The sarcophagus and then what they ended up having to build on top of that because the sarcophagus was failing is huge. I don't really think, like, I didn't just, like, get a couple of guys and, I'm just saying, don't just print whatever comes across the aisles here, guys. But then again, if you didn't, then we wouldn't have this, which is report hits GI chauffeurs in Europe. Representative Les Aspin, Democrat from Wisconsin, charged that a recent General Accounting Office report on the use of Army chauffeurs in Europe revealed a, quote, disregard for the taxpayers' dollars, end quote. The report said that some officers were chauffeured distance of less than 300 yards by GI drivers who often spend most of their time doing nothing between runs. So the command has drivers. I wonder if these are like contracted drivers, because this is, the time when they still made the military do things in the military without just hiring it out. So curious if there's a chauffeur, if you just like specifically had a guy to hire. Navy tunes out Village People promotion. The Navy will not use the hit disco tune In the Navy by the Village People, a pop group with a large homosexual following, as part of its advertising drive to recruit new sailors. The Navy acquired the right to the song by allowing the musical group to videotape a commercial on the Navy ship in San Diego, but decided later to forego using the tune because of budgetary and coordinating requirements. So this sounds very much like the Navy, but also it sounds like the Navy tried to pull a fast one. It's like, I know, we'll tell them that they can record their really gay song on our ship, and then now we have it and nobody else can use it. Now, of course, everybody plays in the Navy, so I really feel like they are missing out on something, regardless of homosexual connotations. The In the Navy song is very macho in a lot of ways. We're tired. No more woke military. Give us back in the Navy. Free facelifts for military wives axed. The Department of Health, Education, and Welfare has ordered its public health service hospitals to stop giving free cosmetic surgery to military wives and other patients who will have to pay for it elsewhere. The order came after the government learned that operations were costing taxpayers $500,000 a year. Most of the 500 or so operations performed each year were found to be purely cosmetic procedures for wives of retired or active duty personnel. Facelifts were the most common procedure. Look, as you know, we 100% stand behind bilking the military out of anything, especially when it comes to getting any health procedure done. I don't, I don't subscribe to the what do you need done in healthcare. If you want to get a facelift, if you feel like you need to get your neck tucked or your nose trimmed or whatever, not knock yourself out. Especially do it on the military's dime because that's even funnier. So, uh, but also it's like these are probably like lieutenant colonels that are getting away with this. This is you can't feel 100% good about it, I guess. But we can at least hope that there was some woman out there who got a free facelift on the military's dime and she's feeling great about it and never has to pay any of it back. Ma'am, I hope you're doing great out there. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Again, please feel free to comment. Tell us what you like. Tell me what you don't like. This is kind of a project that I'm taking on myself. So I would be very interested to know what you guys kind of think about this. This is what I was doing last time. But I'm really finding that there's probably a niche somewhere that I can fill back here on the video space. So it's new open territory. We can make it what we want. So let me know. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll talk to you next week.